you've been through generations of performers.
Mm-hmm.
Through all of those times, and I know it's always been a difficult question for me to answer, but who did you find were like your favorite guys to get in there with? And I'm sure it's for different reasons, but who did you always go, all right, I can't wait for this one?
I hate that question.
Because it limits it, right?
Yeah, and I've had the honor and the privilege of working with so many great performers. That it's very hard to narrow it down, because it's just going to basically be whoever bubbles up from my subconscious today.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult.
It is hard because because so many times like people, I get asked that question too. I'm sure everybody does, but it's one of those things like you've had so many matches, and every person kind of brings something different, a different element to each match, right? That makes it different and enjoyable in different ways. But I mean, obviously, I think your stuff with Taker coming in with him, that would obviously have to be a huge. Obviously, it was a huge launching pad for the Kane character. But I mean, if obviously in your matches with Taker as well, right?
Yeah, of course. That's somewhat biased because, as you said, I mean, there was so much that was tied to Undertaker. But nevertheless, I mean, the guy's one of the all-time greats. So, anytime you're out there with him, it's just an awesome moment. And my favorite match ever was first WrestleMania match as Kane with Undertaker, because that was the culmination of that storyline. At least I thought at that point it was.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Fast forward 20 years later.
15 years afterwards, yeah. But, and it's also emotionally, I owe him so much. I wouldn't be where I am today if he hadn't been an advocate of mine. So that's a bit of a loaded answer.
Right.
But there's so many great guys. I mean, Austin, Rock, Triple H, you guys, if you look at tag teams, the Hardys, the Dudleys, all those guys. Then you move forward and you get guys like Cena. I'm a huge Seth Rollins fan. Anyone that's ever been in the ring with Seth, he is, he really is like the second coming of Shawn Michaels. He's that good. And then some guys like Cesaro, who's just a dude that's so smooth and can do anything, and he can go out one night and have a match with me, and then go out the next night and have a match with Jericho, two completely different styles, and still have the best match of the night because he's that good. I liked working with the smaller guys a lot. Some of my favorite matches were with Rey Mysterio, because that contrast in our sizes really told a good story. Like, when Taker and I are out there, or like when Big Show and I are out there, it can be a little difficult because people aren't used to us getting beat up. Right. They're not used to people beating me up. Like Big Show is one of the few guys that can believably do that. But I think it's a detachment from the match that they normally see. But like I said, there's so many, and I'm probably leaving off about 30 guys as well. So that is a very difficult question to answer because, frankly, again, I've just had the opportunity to work with so many guys because whether I know whether you like it or hate it, WWE is where the best of the best are, and I've been there for a long time, so I've had the opportunity to work with the best.
I think I think back in recent memory as well, and I think it says something to the equity that you kind of built up with the Kane character, that you could kind of, like you say, kind of go through all these transformations, that you could even kind of start doing putting comedy elements with the character, like the stuff that you did with Daniel Bryan, and when you guys went to counseling and that tag team, like that was
Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, I mean that stuff was just great.
Yeah, and that was actually some of my favorite stuff because it was such a departure from what I'd done before. And I think that if you'd asked people 5, 6, 7 years before that Kane is going to be the funny guy on the show, of course that's ridiculous, right? But we were able to pull it off, and a lot of it due to the fact that he's another guy. He's just a great performer. So yeah. And a lot of the things, is being surrounded by it's like a dance, right? And you guys know this, but a lot of it depends on the person that you're out there with and how good they are. And if they're really good, it's a lot of fun. If they're not so good, it ain't so much fun.
It was funny with the Danial Bryan stuff too. It made it funnier to me that the mask was back on. It added a different layer of comedy to it. And I remember coming back for one night, and it was Philadelphia. And they said, do you want to come back for a night and, kind of promote Haven, and we'll have a tie-in and all that stuff? And I was like, oh, so what do you guys have in mind? And they're like, oh, we don't know. I said, well, I want to do something with Glenn and Brian. And they're like, okay, cool. And I remember being in the ring, and the end of this whole thing is we hug. And I remember thinking to myself, after all the things that our characters had been through the years, and tried to set each other on fire, and just so much, character-wise vile stuff. And then I stood there looking at you and thinking, okay, I'm hugging Glenn right now. Seeing your mask, it was just so surreal, but I had so much fun doing that. So I can't even imagine, all the therapy sessions and the restaurant stuff, the fun you guys must have had. It translated.
Oh, it was great. I mean, for me, of course, it wouldn't have been nearly as funny if you're not wearing the mask, because that just added a complete element of ridiculousness to it that was so cool and also believable, but here you have a guy in a mask, who's arguably the meanest person on the planet, and he has to put up with this other dude. I'm the straight guy, and Daniel's the guy making all the jokes. And where else would that work but in WWE? And it worked fantastic, and the Dr. Shelby stuff and all that. It was magic. It really was. It was great.
Well, I thought it was great too for Daniel as well, because there was a time where people thought maybe he didn't have so much of a personality, or wasn't such a great talker, just because he never really had the chance to do it. And when he got that platform, I mean, he hit a home run. He was hilarious.
Absolutely, man. And hopefully, he was able to spin off out of that. He was able to spin off out of that, and hopefully what it did was give him a platform, like you said, to shoot to something even higher, because he went right out from that to to go in with Cena and winning the World Championship. And I think it was really good for both of us. And that's how the business should be. It should be things when we have storylines and all that sort of stuff. And hopefully at the end, everybody involved wins. And in that one, I think we certainly did.
And that's one of those things, not that you're... I guess maybe underappreciated, but that's not the right term, because I think you're appreciated. But what people don't realize, unless they actually stop, sit back, look at a timeline and think about it, you were involved in so many pivotal moments, just like that even just you guys saying it was like, oh yeah, that was the springboard for Daniel Bryan to then main event and win the title at WrestleMania and all of these things. That was the catalyst for that.
And arguably, if that doesn't happen, that opportunity doesn't open for him, arguably. And
so, that just speaks to the performer that you are. But also one thing that I don't think people realize is how many different types of matches. Like, I think back to ladder matches I've been involved in. You were in a lot of them. And on paper, that doesn't make sense. You think, okay, let's throw the giant in a ladder match. But you have been in so many ladder matches, so many TLC matches, and it really does speak, and I'm not just blowing smoke here, because I think of this of you personally, but also as a performer. You're that utility player that they know, and like I said, going back to being the glue, one of those guys that is the glue of a show, of a company. You can do a TLC match, then you can hop in there with Rey Mysterio, then you can hop in there with Big Show and believably be opponent for him. And there's not many guys that can do that.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean,
there's not much to say to that, I guess, because I just basically set you up to put yourself over. But
Adam, let me just say this: if you set me up the same way, I'll go on. I'll put myself over for 10, 15 minutes.
See, there's the difference.
Do that with Jay. Right. No, that's what we. I mean, I think that's what I've just always done and tried to do what I thought was best. Steal the line from the authority, but best for business. Seriously, because the business has been very good to me, and that's just what I think that all of us that are true professionals try to do. In the end, is whatever situation you're in, you just do the best you can. And I always say that people paid really good money to watch us perform, so we owe it to them to get their money's worth and give them the best performance that we can. I've been fortunate. It's funny because when I look back over my life, my career, really, and I said earlier that I choose to be in WWE. One of the things that I think is everybody has a gift that is inside them, that all they need to do is figure out what that gift is, and that's how you become great at something. And this was one of my gifts. It's a unique skill set, being a professional wrestler and WWE superstar, but nevertheless, it's just something that I was blessed to be able to do. And I hope that over the years people have gotten entertainment and enjoyment out of that. And I tell you guys, actually, one of the greatest things ever is, and you guys know this because you get it all the time too, is when someone comes up to you and says they've been watching you for years and want to shake your hand and thank you for giving them years of entertainment. And of course, because I'm always like, well, without you guys, where would I be?
Here's a funny story, actually. Sorry, finish. Go ahead, go. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. I mean, but yeah, it's just something I've been, just been fortunate enough to be able to do.
Well, here's a funny story. I was at the playground with my daughter, who's 3, literally last Friday. So it was like 5 days ago, and I have her on the swing. I'm pushing her on the swing, and this lady is beside me with her son, and he's on the swing, and we just small talk between parents at the playground, and she said the boy's name. She called him. She said, Kane, and she sings him, and I was like, oh, that's a cool name. And she goes, yeah. She goes, and then we just talked more, and she asked me what my daughter's name was. I told her, and we just kind of got talking about names. She goes, yeah, she goes, I was just a big WWE fan, and I named him after the wrestler Kane. Do you know him? And I went, yeah, I know who he is. She goes, oh, okay, cool. And I said, all right, see you later. And I walked away, and I said, that's funny. It just, yeah. So
it's awesome, weird, man, and it's cool.
Yeah, when you start to see it now, kind of bleed into the next generation, right? Because I'll have, an autograph session or something. A dad will come up, and you see their kids with them, and they know who you are because mom and dad have showed them, whether it's through the network or however it is, probably the network. And they've caught them up on it. Beth has a Facebook friend, and her sister, her son's a big wrestling fan, I guess, and she posted this picture of her son, and he was dressed up as me, and he's probably 6 years old. So her best friend went, wait a minute, I think one of my good friends is married to him. so we can probably get you an autograph or an action figure or something. It's just so surreal to me to see these young folks that are, being introduced to all of this through their parents and grandparents. And I guess that's always been the case, but it's still kind of mind-blowing to see it. And you realize that, we were really lucky.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people were very skeptical about the network when it was launched. I myself was like, why are they putting all of the pay-per-views on the network?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's such an enormous revenue stream. Why don't you just have some of the, essentially the smaller pay-per-views, for lack of a better term, but keep the big 4 off of the network, so you don't lose that revenue stream altogether, right? But that network was ingenious, and is another thing that has revolutionized our business. Mm-hmm. Because my favorite thing on the network is the archives.
Yeah.
I lived in Missouri, rural Missouri, and if the wind was blowing right on Saturday night, I get to see All-Star Wrestling out of Kansas City. And then once a month, I'd go down to my grandma's and watch wrestling at the Chase, which was the show, but only about once a month or so, right?
Yeah.
I'd heard about like the Funks and the Von Erichs and the Freebirds. I got to see Ric Flair maybe once on TV, right? But I heard all this stuff about Flair, about Rock and Roll Express, all these other guys, but I never really got to see it because I was just in a different part of the country, and we didn't have cable TV. We lived out in the middle of nowhere. So then to be able to see all that stuff now on the network is just I feel like a kid again, 'cause I get to see the stuff that I'd heard so much about. And then also I think it really, like with the Attitude Era, it's breathed new life into that because, all these people hear about the Attitude Era, and then they actually get to go watch it on the network, which wasn't really possible before except with, the occasional DVD here and there. So, it really, again, that was a brilliant maneuver by WWE, and really has just changed the nature of the whole deal at this point.
It's interesting. I remember Vince saying a quote that I thought was really interesting is he doesn't want to be ahead of the curve. He wants to be just behind it. So you can see what works, what doesn't, and pick up the pieces kind of thing. And on this, I think that is exactly what happened, because pay-per-view now is it's becoming a bygone era, and just like closed circuit was before that, this is the way of the future, and I think Netflix kind of helped everyone to see that.